What's good, Maryville? This is the Droppin podcast. I'm Noah Cooper, and I'm joined by Perry Randall, as I am every week. So how are we doing this week, Perry?
Hey, the playoffs are 1 week from Sunday, so you already know I'm getting hyped, man. I got some plans to get some wings. I can't say the names of the places, but I'm getting some wings, and I'm watching some great basketball.
You know, don't be surprised if I come knocking at your door as soon as I heard you say wings. You know, I'm already halfway to your house right now, so I'm looking forward to that too. And I think all NBA fans are looking forward to the playoffs right now because, especially out in the Western Conference, there's a huge push for the playoffs, especially when you have teams so bunched up right there, because between the 4 seed and the 10 seed right now, you only have 3 games separating those teams in the loss column. And the 9 and 10 seed right now, the Nuggets and the Clippers, they've won 4 in a row, while all those other teams are on losing streaks right now. So that really opens up the door for teams like the Nuggets or the Clippers to possibly get in the playoffs, especially when 6, 7, and 8 only have a 1-game difference between them and 9th place right now.
Well, for the Nuggets, I don't really feel like they have enough to really push for the playoffs. I feel like New Orleans is playing pretty well, and also Minnesota. Minnesota should be getting Jimmy Butler in the first round of the playoffs, so they're kind of optimistic for making the playoffs.
Well, one thing that I have to say about that is that the Wolves and the Nuggets play 2 more times the rest of the season, and the Nuggets also play the Clippers. So even if the Nuggets lose the game they have to the Trailblazers, and at that point the Trailblazers, it's 2 games left in the season, if they have a big enough difference between them and that 4 slot, they might be resting their players. So that could open up the door for the Nuggets to win that game too. But I think that the games against the Timberwolves, the 2 games against the Wolves, and the 1 against the Clippers will be really telling and really big on the Nuggets season, because if they win all those games, they're in the playoffs for sure.
In my opinion, they're going to lose all these games that they're about to play.
Really?
Yeah, honestly. I feel like all these teams, the Clippers, the Timberwolves, and the Blazers, they're all playing for something. I feel like if they did lose a game, it'd probably be to the Blazers, just because they're kind of sitting at that 3rd spot happy. But the Timberwolves are playing for something, and the Clippers, they're trying to play for something. I don't know why, but they're trying to play for something. But they're going to probably lose all these next 4 games. So that's my prediction, and I feel like the playoffs are not necessarily the seeding is set, but the teams are set. And so it could change as far as the teams, but I don't see Denver making it this year.
I think 2 weeks ago at this point, I thought that all the teams were pretty set in stone. It was looking like the Clippers and the Nuggets didn't have enough left in the tank, and that those other teams were for sure going to make it, especially when the Pelicans started to creep up there and into the 4-seed conversation when Anthony Davis was at his MVP talk high. But it seems like now the Pelicans, they've lost 4 in a row. They're in a pretty big slump right now, and they still have to face the Warriors in a game, and they still have to face the Spurs and the Clippers in a game too. So it looks like a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other throughout the end of the season, so it really might come down to that last night, or the night before that, or the night before that even. It might come down to those last 3 nights in the NBA season to really decide who's going to make that last spot.
And rightfully so, it's the wild, wild West, and these teams are always playing for something. I feel like the playoffs have already started in the West, in my opinion. The Spurs versus Rockets game the other day. We haven't seen that type of Spurs basketball in I don't know how long, but they ended up blowing out the Rockets. And then you got the Warriors. They're playing hard against the Thunder last night, and that was a great game to watch. So I just feel like the playoffs have already started, in my opinion, and all these players, this is where they're really made. They're made in the playoffs, and the regular season's over. So I had every team that's in the playoffs making it in the West, except for the Clippers, because no one can predict a trade like that for Blake Griffin goes to Detroit. And then also Donovan Mitchell and his rise to stardom in Utah, leading that team to the 4th seed right now. But no one can predict stuff like that. But let me tell you that I did have all these teams in here. I'm trying to let you know.
Well, that's something that a lot of people didn't predict, was the Jazz being quite that high. Right now they're sitting at the number 4 seed, and probably I'd say they're most likely going to end at that 4 seed too. Especially since their last couple games. I feel like the Blazers in that last game, they might be resting their guys. I feel like obviously the Warriors, they won't be at full strength when they play them. And then they play the Lakers in a game, and they play the Clippers too. So, I mean, don't count the Jazz out for winning all of those games either. But you mentioned the Spurs there when you were talking about teams. And the Spurs are probably the most weirdly so, they might be the most interesting team out of all this group, because I mean they're 12 games above 500 right now, but theoretically they're almost like if you look at their roster makeup and look at what they are on paper, there's not too much difference between them and, aside from LaMarcus Aldridge, there's really not too much difference between their roster makeup and, like, let's say the Nets roster makeup. So whatever that Spurs system is doing to propel a team that's probably below 500 to 12 games over 500 and to the 5th seed in the Western Conference is really exceptional.
Well, this is just a testament to how great of a coach Greg Popovich is, first of all. In my opinion, he's the greatest NBA coach of all time. But, like you said, he's got all these guys playing that are basically the equivalent of the Nets team, and they're just buying into the system, playing that Spurs basketball that we love. I don't want to say we love because it's kind of boring to me sometimes. Well, it's like it gets the job done.
You look at the roster makeup of, like, the Atlanta Hawks, and then you look up the roster makeup of the San Antonio Spurs, and you're like, aside from LaMarcus Aldridge, what's the difference here?
Hey, when you're on 2K, you're not saying I'm getting the Spurs for DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, right.
That's never doing that. But in my opinion, this is a great season for the Spurs. They're at the 5th seed right now. And you don't have your best player playing because he's dealing with some injuries, but he's out there in New York playing with the videographers on a 3-3 game.
It's so weird to hear a story like this out of San Antonio, because if we were in Cleveland or Los Angeles or New York, this would be the number one story all the time. Why is Kawhi not with the team doctors? Why is he not with the organization? Instead, he's out in New York chilling with his doctors, chilling with his crew. And it honestly, right now, from his team's standpoint, it doesn't seem like he really wants to be in San Antonio, especially when you have his teammates criticizing him. As we heard Tony Parker a couple weeks ago say, my injury, my quad injury was 100 times worse than this. I've had injuries in the past that were so much worse than this. Why are you not out here? This could possibly be me and Manu's last season, and you're not out here playing. So it seems like there's a lot of disdain right now between the organization and the players, and then Kawhi Leonard.
Let me first say that I do not blame Kawhi Leonard at all for what he's doing, just because of the juggernauts that are in the Western Conference with the Rockets and the Warriors. I do not feel like this is a season for San Antonio to win, but I really like that he's investing in himself. He's going to be a free agent coming this summer, and he's going to just try and build his draft stock. Now, let's say that he re-aggravates the injury playing games, then he's not going to get as big of a contract as he would if he's healthy.
I just think that it's funny that, like, I don't know, it's like it's weird. I guess weird is what you'd say when the team doctors have medically cleared him to play for weeks now. He's been medically cleared to play, and he is just on his own free will deciding, you know what, I don't want to go out there right now and help out my team, and that's something that personally I wouldn't like to hear.
Hey, look, everybody has their own body. If I get hurt and I hurt my knee and you hurt your knee and I heal faster than you can't be like,
he is medically cleared to play, though.
So a doctor has never been wrong.
He's been that way for weeks now, is what I'm saying.
I'm
saying a doctor could be wrong, and everyone knows their own body differently.
My question to you was, how long was Derrick Rose cleared? And he sat out a whole entire season because he wasn't ready yet.
And look what happened to him. It didn't pay off. For him not coming back. He never trusted his body ever again, and that would be what I'm worried about coming from Kawhi Leonard. I'm hoping it's not one of those situations.
And that's my thing with him, is that his body is different. So and also that is a different injury, but still the same scenario that a player has suffered an injury and they're medically clear, but they don't trust themselves yet because they don't think they're going to be them full self, or they still have little tender areas.
I've looked up a timeline of his quad injury that he's dealing with right now, and this was something that it was in reports about 4 or 5 years ago that he had an issue. He had a small pain in his quad. And then a couple of years back, 2-3 years ago, the issue completely went away, and we didn't see this issue again until this season. So it's not like something that had just happened. It's not something that happened because of what Zaza did to him last year in the playoffs. This is an injury that's been lingering around Kawhi Leonard for a while now. So from that perspective, I can see what you mean in terms of why he wouldn't want to come back, because he wants to make sure that the injury is probably 100% solved by the time he returns to the organization.
Look, at the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard knows his body better than I know his body better than you know his body.
And he knows his team's not making the finals.
Exactly. Like, he knows what he's getting himself into. It's kind of the same thing with Kyrie Irving wanting to leave Cleveland. He wanted to invest in himself. He wanted to better his direction of his future career rather than the team's career.
Well, I feel like, too, that I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like Kawhi Leonard thinks that he's a big star, and he's not getting that star presence being in San Antonio, and that's why I think he wants to leave. Like we saw it with the Jordan contract and everything. It seems like he feels like he's a much bigger star than what a lot of people say he is, and especially being out there in San Antonio, he doesn't get the media coverage that he would if he was out there in L.A. or New York.
Well, first of all, he's the biggest star on this team. I don't care what Tony Parker says about his previous injury. All he does is a pick and roll, and Kawhi Leonard has to guard the best player on the opposing team also and get the buckets too, along with LaMarcus Aldridge. Mm-hmm. So as far as being the best player on his team, he should feel that way. But Kawhi Leonard, he is, I'm trying to look up his age real quick. I'm trying to find him. But he is 26. Mm-hmm. And so he's still pretty young. He's yet to reach his prime, in my opinion.
I was going to say like 29,
He acts like he's 29 because he's so mature, and I feel like that's what it is. I feel like if you're younger, you're just inching to get back into the game, and you're not really thinking about has my injury fully recovered. I don't care what the doctors say. You just ready just to hop back in there and try and dunk the ball again. But if you're Kawhi Leonard, he's mature. He doesn't say too much. So I expect that he's going to take his time with his body. Now, the whole thing with the videographers playing with them, that kind of took me by surprise. I was like, hold on, you playing with the videographers, but you can't play with your teammates in practice? Mm-hmm. But
that's the thing that bothered me the most is like, I personally feel like he's ready, but he's just not coming back. I don't know. It's a crazy story, no matter how you look at it, and it's weird that we see a story like this coming out of San Antonio because most of the time that's an organization that keeps things in-house, and you don't really hear about that stuff outside. So it is kind of weird that we're hearing about something like that, especially from San Antonio. But, I mean, either way, the Western Conference right now, it's just so crazy. We're not sure if we're going to have a show tomorrow because there is Northwest baseball games, so we're going to try to get to as much as the Western Conference and a little of the Eastern Conference as we can right here in the next 10 minutes or so. But, I mean, the Western Conference is just bonkers right now, and really anything can happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams make or miss the playoffs or just what happens down the stretch.
Well, like I said, the teams that are in there right now I expect to be set, and along with the East too. So let's just say that the Houston meets the Jazz, or not the Jazz. Who's the 8th seed right now?
Right now the 8th seed is the Pelicans right now.
The Pelicans.
Yeah.
That'd be a great matchup. I feel like there's great matchups 1 through 8. And in the Eastern Conference, same thing. And I'm ready to watch all these games because I'm going to have my popcorn, I'm going to have my wings, I'm going to have my dooskies, and I'm going to be ready to watch some great basketball, man. So, hey, these seedings, man, I feel like everybody just had their pick for Warriors and the Cavs just simple. And it could still be that way, but it's not as simple because of the Houston Rockets and along with the Warriors injuries, along with the Raptors, the baby dinosaurs in the East going against LeBron James, and also Kyrie Irving coming back. I just feel like there's a lot of hype that we haven't had in the past couple years.
I think you mentioned that you think that all the teams in the West are locked right now. I think that every team up until the Thunder is locked right now. But I think after that, the Timberwolves and the Pelicans, that's where I think it gets a little iffy, mostly because of what I mentioned earlier about the Timberwolves playing the Nuggets. They could beat them in both of those games, but if they lose both of those games, now they're out of the playoffs. So that could be really big for them. And I think the Pelicans could be big too because they have 5 games left to go in their schedule, whereas teams like the Thunder, they only have 3 games left to go in their schedule. So they're not going to be playing as many more games, even though the Thunder do play the Rockets in one of their last 2 games. The Pelicans, they do have 5 more games, so that's quite a bit, especially when one of them's against the Warriors and then the other one's against the Spurs. So both tough games right there.
Well, my thing for the Pelicans is that a couple years ago when Kevin Durant got hurt and it was just Russell Westbrook, they had to go against the Pelicans to see who was going to make the playoffs in one of the final games in the regular season. And then I believe Anthony Davis, he hit the shot in the first game of the series, and then in the last game of the series, they won, which knocked the Thunder out of the playoffs. So my point being with the Pelicans that they have that guy that can put you over the edge in playoff situations extended to the regular season where you're gonna need that guy to get you to the playoffs. before you have to go into those playoff situations. So Anthony Davis, that's a juggernaut who you just give him the ball, and all you got to do is just sit back and relax, and he's going to get in there and dunk on somebody. But as far as Nuggets, you don't really have that. You got Jokic, who is not a superstar. He's a kind of a star in the making. And then you have Paul Millsap, who's still coming back for injury.
Jokic, he always puts up pretty impressive offensive numbers all around. But when you look at his defensive game, you can see that there's something big missing in his defensive game, especially his game on pick-and-roll defense. But overall, just Jokic, he's a solid player on offense, but you just never know what to expect from him on defense. And he does have those streaky nights as well. But we're going to move towards the Eastern Conference here as we only have about 6 minutes left to go.
We can go all night, man. I'm ready.
We could go all night, but we got class to go to, too.
Oh,
so,
dang, I forgot,
we can't miss out on that. But we got 6 minutes left, so we're going to quickly go over the Eastern Conference here. We look at the Eastern Conference, and it's the same as it has been the last couple weeks with the Raptors up at the top and the Bucks sitting in 8th place right now, and otherwise all the teams in between, they've been pretty much at the same slot right now. I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, to watch for is the Cleveland Cavaliers game against the 76ers on April 6th, which is 2 days from now, because more than likely that game's going to be the deciding game for the 3 seed, because the Cavs play the Knicks back-to-back in their last 2 games, and I fully expect them to win both those games because the Knicks, they're definitely not trying to win right now. They're trying to get that 8th spot in the lottery. You saw they only scored 73 points yesterday, so they're really not trying to win. What I'm trying to say is it's going to come down to that game, most likely for the 3 seed between the Cavs and the Sixers, so that's going to be a playoff atmosphere right there.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, I completely agree with you because, in my opinion, LeBron James is already in that playoff mode that we've seen these last couple of years where he's just dominating. Last night he had 27, 10, and 6 against the best team in the best record in the East. Let me say that. So
not ready to give the Raptors the credit yet.
No, absolutely not. But the LeBron James, when you give him the ball, and as much as he says that he doesn't really care about seeding, at the end of the day, he knows that it's important whether he wants to say it or not. So this game is important because that'll be the difference between having to go against the Raptors in the second round and the Raptors in the third round.
Yeah, and now that the Wizards have fallen from the 6th seed to the 7th seed, now the Cavs, they went from having to face most likely the Wizards, the Celtics, and the Raptors in order to facing a Heat team, which I feel like they'd have a better chance against the Heat, just mostly because in the playoffs, superstars start to matter a little bit. Yeah, the bench depth does too, like the Heat have. But when you have John Wall and Bradley Beal on your team, I'd much rather face a team that doesn't really have that bona fide superstar like the Heat do. And then the next round, they would have a playoff series against a Celtics team with a Kyrie Irving that's just coming back, and then the next round a Raptors team who we've now seen the Cavs have beat 2 times in the last week and a half. So right now I can definitely see why the Cavs are favored to win the Eastern Conference again.
Well, going back to the seeding, the Cavs, in my opinion, have a harder schedule than the 76ers going out, other than that game that they have against each other.
Because they have the Wizards again, too.
Exactly. And the 76ers have they have the Bucks, but I really don't see that as being like a competitive game because that'll be a game after that Cavs game. But the 76ers have the Hawks. They have – I just left
the Mavs.
The Mavs.
And the Mavs, they have been playing a little tough lately.
Yeah.
As you saw, they played the Cavs pretty tough, and then they also just beat the Blazers.
Because Cuban got caught saying in the comments earlier, man.
Right.
But Sixers, I feel like they have the easier schedule. It's just like you said, it's going to come down to that game, Cleveland versus Philly, and then also, in my opinion, it's going to depend on if Joel Embiid is going to play because he didn't play last night. I thought he was going to play, but he didn't play last night.
And it'll be interesting for me to see how he plays with that mask and how he reacts to that too. Because
he'll be all right.
I think he'll be all right. I mean, it shouldn't be something too big to worry about. But I think it was maybe Kyrie or something said he hated playing with it, or D Rose or something. One of those guys said he's like, I hate playing with it. So that could be another storyline. But my big question I have to ask you, it applies to both the Raptors and a little bit now the 76ers too. And we've seen this happen in past years. Teams peaking a little bit too early in the season and not peaking in playoff time. And my concern is now that the Sixers have won 11 games in a row, that they're peaking a little bit too early and they won't be at their full strength in the playoffs because we've seen them rattle off 9 straight double-digit victories and 11 in a row right now. Should that be a concern right now for them?
I don't think so because we've said it before. Me and you have said that this season is already a success for them. So if they're peaking too early, they also are in the East. So if they go down a little bit, they have the talent that can get them right back up. They have Joel Embiid.
That's one of the biggest things with the Sixers, and it's not to be overlooked that they got Bellinelli and Ilyasova right after the trade deadline and the buyout period. I think that's really helped them out a lot to get those two players, because now we've seen a couple more veteran guys on their team, and now there's almost two sides of the 76ers. We got their young talent, and then we got their old savvy veterans that are going to come in off the bench and provide scoring from you and keep you in these games. And that's why we've seen them win 9 straight games by double digits, is because when those bench guys come out, the other teams aren't coming back right now. Those veterans are extending the lead to 15. They're extending the lead to 20, and we've seen the lead grow even more.
And even the home court advantage, that's so big for them, because they're coming off Villanova winning. They're coming off the Eagles winning. So
there's a lot of hype right now around Philadelphia. Now the Raptors, I feel like you're going to feel different about, like, if I pose that question a little differently and I say, did the Raptors peak too early about 3 weeks ago?
I don't even know if they have a peak.
But you would probably say yes, right?
I don't think they have a peak.
I think
Kyle Lowry showed me he's in playoff form right now.
I think we saw peak Raptors on the 16th after coming off that Mavericks win. I believe they had won. It was something like 8-9 games in a row. We saw them beat Houston on that stretch. We saw them beat the Wizards a couple times on that stretch, and everyone was so high on the Raptors, myself included. I was like, dang, this is a whole new Raptors team.
And what did I say?
And you were still like, I want to see this team perform in the playoffs. They haven't shown me. And I was a little bit in the same way, but I'm like, I don't know. I really like what they have going. And then the next game, they lost to the Thunder, who hung 132 on them. And then they barely beat the Magic. And then the biggest game of their season against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where they punched them in the mouth in the first half. They punched them in the mouth. I think they scored 79. And then they went on to lose the game 132 to 129. I think that was a huge blast to their confidence. I just think that was not a good game for them, and I think, come playoff time, that's a game where they can look back on where we're now looking at like a big brother little brother situation where Cleveland is the big brother and Toronto's the little brother, and they just can't get past the big brother in the playoffs.
Well, let's say that Toronto some way somehow does have a peak somewhere in their heart. They have a peak, and they're dropping off right now. In the first round right now, they would go against Milwaukee. And all you really got to deal with is Giannis, and that's it. And then,
but either way, upset potential right there. If you have Giannis on your team, that's upset potential.
I don't expect them to lose, but they'll lose games in that series. They'll lose maybe 1 or 2 in that series. Maybe they might even go to 7, to be honest. And then after that, it would go 1-8. Was it 4-5? So then they would have to go against either Philadelphia or Cleveland. So in that second round, in my opinion, they're going to lose.
You're writing off the Pacers that easy?
Yes. They're going to lose in that second round, in my opinion, if they go against Philadelphia. I feel like Philadelphia has the talent to really get to the conference final.
I feel like Philadelphia, now, I don't know if you're ready for this, but I feel like they have the talent to make it to the finals. They could be 1 year out.
It depends on who they're going against.
They could lose in the first round, or they can make it to the finals. I think anything's possible right now for Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference.
It depends on who they go against. If they go against Cleveland in the conference finals, I don't think anybody's going to pick Philadelphia to win. But they do have the talent to get there. I feel like Joel Embiid's injury has really been heaven sent for Ben Simmons, because he's able to really – because you could say this at the beginning of the season, but – this is still his rookie season, so he's still learning at the beginning of the season. But down the stretch of the regular season, he's able to he's hitting shots that he knows the defenses are giving him. He's reading a lot better than he did at the beginning of the season. So when Embiid comes back, he's still going to have the same reads, but with a better player. So you're right. They definitely have the talent to get to the finals, but in my opinion, it's just going to depend on who they go against, because if they go against King James, then like I said, the process will be in full order.
I think the Eastern Conference playoffs will be more exciting than the Western Conference playoffs, and I only think that because I think there's upset potential in every single series, every single matchup. I think there's upset potential when you look at the Bucks could upset the Raptors, the Wizards could upset the Celtics, the Heat could upset the Cavs, and the Pacers could upset the Sixers. I think any way you look at it, I think there's upset potential. In the West, I'm not seeing that a little more. Yeah, they might go to 5, maybe 6 games against some of these, but I don't really know if there's quite as much upset potential as there is in the East.
I believe that there's more series upset potential in the East, but I feel like the games will be closer in the West because of the talent that is better in the West. I feel like the East is kind of shaky. Like you said, they'll peak and then next game they'll be real low.
I can definitely agree with you there, but I mean my point still stands though.
Like
is
the series.
My point still stands is like there's really like. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams upset the team that's above them.
So who's your finals matchup since we won't be talking until the playoffs start?
I think now I'm putting Cleveland to the finals again. To be honest, we're right before the playoffs.
Against who? Oh, here we go.
Don't
switch up on me now.
I'm gonna say the Warriors.
Oh, hey, welcome to the bright side, man. I knew you was gonna join eventually, bro.
Now, if Steph never comes back, which he'll come back, but if he never comes back, I might have to pick the Rockets.
Let me go ahead. We're late for class, but let me go ahead and throw this at you before we wrap it up. The Golden State Warriors are definitely worse without Steph Curry, right?
They could still beat the Rockets.
But in previous history, and I know we can't really go off of this, but in previous history, the playoffs have really gotten to these two guys named Paul and Harden. Not only on the court, but also with injuries as well, with dealing with CP3.
But we've seen the narrative change.
No, the narrative's still the same because Chris Paul ain't never been to the conference finals. So
that's true.
Let's say that they get to the conference finals, right, and they put so many miles on their bodies, running up and down the court, shooting so many threes, right, and now they have to deal with also isolation, which they're going to be pretty good in the playoffs. Their bodies are going to be worn down, and so a half of these two stars is only one star when you can still got Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and their bench, in my opinion, works a lot better than the Houston Rockets bench because it's hit and miss with the Houston Rockets bench. And Golden State, you got guys that are able to get to the basket. You got Sean Livingston that's got that in-between game. And you got also Finals MVP Andre Iguodala coming out the bench.
You got savvy veterans out there that can get it done for you.
So I'm just trying to let you know that when you came to the bright side, the right side, you knew what you was doing.
I wanted to be on the right side of history for one time.
It's not, and if you are on the wrong side of history, just know that you should have belonged on the right side of history. I'm just trying to let you know.
At least I'm here right now. So I got Cleveland and I got Golden State, and I feel like in the finals, I feel like it would turn out the same way as it did last year. I feel like
it's 4-1.
I feel like 4-1. LeBron's going to get that game where he just gets you and there's nothing you can do about it. But in those other games, you still got 4 first-ballot Hall of Famers on the other team. And speaking of first-ballot Hall of Fame, shout out to my guy Ray Allen. We didn't think he was going to get in. No report said he was getting in, and then all of a sudden, he was in. So shout out to Ray.
Hey, shout out to Ray, but shout out to Noah Cooper for coming to the bright side, man. Hey, welcome.
You know, I'm on the bright side, and it feels good. So I think we're going to end the podcast on that note right now. We're going to have a lot more playoff action for you as soon as the playoffs start. So stay tuned to Droppin' Dimes. Stay tuned to the Droppin' Dimes podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Droppin_Dimes1. We got a lot of content. We're bringing you a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we're going to have more polls in the future. Is that right, Perry?
Of course. I got a whole bunch for the playoffs.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch.
I'm in my bag.
We got a whole bunch of stuff prepared. We're in our bag here at Droppin' Dimes. So on that note, we out.